evening, it's September 17th, 2012. Welcome to yet another episode of VI Voices. I'm Emile Henderson, along with Natalie Nelson, Tang, Clint Ferris, and Boyd McFarland. It's going to be another action-packed show. Tonight we have candidates George Moore and Judy Buckley, who will be with us as we try to get a little bit more the insight of who they are and what they intend to do if they are in fact elected to the 3rd Legislature of the Virgin Islands. But as we do every evening, we will begin with our hot topics. And our first hot topic is the fiscal year 2013 budget, in which the legislature has increased it by $11.6 million.
I mean, I looked at the budget. I think you and I were on the same page. When I opened the newspaper, I think the governor proposed a $556 million budget, and it came out to 562 somewhere, but they saw an $11 million increase. Actually, whatever the government submitted, that to me, that what the legislature should have approved. Where did they find that $11 million?
Well, that's where they get to do more of their spending.
But you see, and that's the problem. Small, and where's the change in behavior? They asked the working men and women of the Virgin Islands to conserve, to change behavior, take an 8% cut, do more with less, and they are not doing more with less.
So they're going to say, of course, as they cut their budget by about $2 million, they're going to say that they have cut their budget. And so they have been attempting to do what they've asked the other branches of government to do.
But
I was going to say perhaps they're doing it again to justify going to borrow more money.
Yeah. But what I will say, though, that something that affects us directly as lawyers, and it will affect you all indirectly, is the fact that they have approved a budget for the Superior Court of $22 million, $23 million, I believe, which is woefully deficient to run a court, a trial court, especially when their operating expenses is $22 million. And so they're either going to have to dismiss employees just to be able to provide the indigent care that the Constitution requires that they do, or they're going to have to find more money somewhere in the budget as far as revenues are concerned.
See, and that's the challenge we continue to face with our present government. And they're not demonstrating the necessary acumen in terms of financial acumen and business acumen to get the job done for us, the working men and women in these Virgin Islands. And as a voter, I'm looking keenly at the members of this legislature who are going to be seeking office again, because it's an indication that we're going to have more of the same if we continue to allow these people to lead us forward.
Well, keep in mind that this present governor is on his way out. He's on his last term. We have a situation here where there's a lack of prioritization. So, as you mentioned earlier, the Superior Court is going to be in dire straits come next budget year, because they're already right now in financial deficit as it is. They already can't make ends meet as it is, and being able to run a court efficiently, to me, is paramount to having civility and justice in this place that we live. So if that is not met, I think we're going to have chaos, because right now I think the court is operating on a budget shoestring. We have a lot of sacrifices that we make as attorneys trying to work in the court-appointed matters and what have you, and I just think that it's unfair to the people of the Virgin Islands, particularly the working men and women who are carrying, this economy, basically.
Well, what makes it, I think, even more of a crisis is the fact that we not only have a lame duck governor, who's actually on his way out, and that's why we consider him a lame duck governor, because he doesn't have to do anything, he doesn't have to run again. But we have a lame duck Senate, because we have 6 senators that are not coming back to the Senate.
Has that happened recently?
5, no. I don't know to have ever happened.
I don't either.
And so they don't care. They can do whatever they want as long as they're the senators and without any recourse to go against them.
Correct. And so you have to wonder what's going to take place come November 7th in these Virgin Islands, because one of the things that we did not even put on our hot topic slate is the fact that on Thursday, those bills that we were talking about, they somehow,
special order?
No, those bills,
they were killed, actually.
Yeah, 29-0, 423, 424. All of those just went out, they died. And I'm telling you, I am very fearful that those bills are going to be reinvented.
And tell them where you're going to show up.
Show up, they could probably show up in the omnibus bill. In the omnibus bill. That's why I think they're going to show up.
I mean, we know it's happened in the past, but let's give them the
No,
benefit.
I
am willing
not.
to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I will not. You know why I
I mean,
won't?
they saw the uproar when they've done that before.
Now,
So
think
give
about
them
the
benefit of
characters
doubt.
that are leaving the legislature. The big bad white dog. Those fellas are going to make sure they sneak that thing in.
Yeah. The 20th legislature, there's no dispute, in my opinion, has been the worst legislature we've ever had. And yes, I said it. The worst legislature we've ever had. And their legacy is a legacy of a lack of actual compassion and acumen to lead this territory. And that's what they're going to leave here with. But I agree with you. The omnibus bill is that huge bill that nobody ever knows what's in it, and it passes. And everything that they don't want us to know about is going to be right in that omnibus bill.
That's where we have to hold them accountable, guys.
And be careful. They're going to wait until we eating turkey.
Off guard.
The tryptophan from the turkey is going to put us to sleep, and they're going to sneak the bill up from the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Clint, right?
I'm just telling you, this is the MO of our leader, and has been for some time.
But one bill that they're not attempting to sneak in is the peace officer status bill. And apparently tonight, it has been special ordered to the floor. As you know, last week, we discussed the issue regarding the peace officer status bill, which is to give the federal officers the right to be able, like all of our VIP officers, peace officer status, and to have all the protections that our local officers have for civil immunity. It was killed, I should say killed, but it died somewhat in the committee. The Public Safety Committee, the quorum was broken by, incidentally, 2 senators who are not seeking re-election. They left, so they couldn't go forward.
But they have Senator Sanders' majority. Keep mentioning it, of his majority.
Right. But today now, Senator Sanders has moved to have it be special ordered to the floor, and it has been special ordered, and I believe as we speak here in film tonight, it's being debated right now.
But you know what? The timing is not coincidental. You know, do you see that federal office, the federal agent was found not guilty in the civil jury trial?
Well, he was found not liable.
Not liable, because it was a civil case.
It was a civil case.
But he was found not liable for the death of the gentleman that had the altercation. And I think that it's not coincidental. You see what I'm saying? Because I didn't read the whole opinion, but I know that it puts them somewhat in a situation where he's on top. You see what I'm saying? It's a situation where this officer now has been relieved of all liability. So it seems to me that this is a very good timing with this, to come to the forefront right now rather than another time.
But
think about it.
Yeah, but see, I think about it, but see, I am a big conspiracy theorist over here. I'm saying, I see where you're coming from with that part, but I'm saying that this is a way of giving vote to Senator Sanders. That's my whole thing.
Giving vote to Sanders? From who?
Vote, because think about it.
But from whom?
His own majority shut him down, and look how quick the same bill came back. No, his own people defeated him. And think about the budget bill. He was allowed to put 2 budget items, that I think one for a park, one for this. All of these to me is a way of letting somebody be able to pad their record for the election to come. That's how I'm calling it.
Well, it would have to be, I know that peace officer status bill is a bill that is truly debated because there are a lot of people who agree with it and a lot of people who do not.
Do we really need it though, guys?
No, I don't believe we need it. My position is the same regarding this peace officer status towards federal officers. Ain't gonna change nothing. My position and my opinion is ain't gonna change nothing. The reason why they're doing it is supposedly to alleviate crime in the Virgin Islands, but to assist the local VIPD to alleviate crime. There's no way you could tell thinking people in this community, me included, that giving wholeheartedly, just giving or granting peace officer status towards federal employees is going to change anything or change the crime status. I mean, currently we got guns coming in at an alarming rate. We got drugs coming in at an alarming rate and they're doing nothing then. They control the borders. So how, I cannot understand for the life of me how giving them peace officer status will change anything.
Remember, it's really done as a result of that ATF case and the fact that that officer was charged criminally in our local courts, and the federal government sought to remove the charges from there to go to district court. When they did that, Judge Gomez in district court says, no, that is purely a local crime. It doesn't matter that it involves a federal employee. They have a right to charge and have the case held in superior court. Of course, you know what happened. The case
Why was he charged?
It was charged in Superior Court.
Why was he charged?
He was charged with murder because they felt that he did not justifiably kill.
The manner in which?
The manner in which? Excessive force, right.
Okay, suppose it was a reverse.
But if
he would have never been charged and it would have been an issue.
Correct.
He's an officer anyway.
But if he had peace officer status, he would have had the protections of the government relative to civil liability.
Okay.
And see, that's the problem. Here he was sued. He doesn't have peace officer status, so he's sued as himself.
So we as a community
so now we going to pay for them whenever they're going to get sued.
So we should succumb to threats from the federal government?
Yeah.
Simply because one of these.
But what happens is that the people don't recognize, once again, that's what happens when we don't know our political status with the United States of America. We are not a state. We are not incorporated into the United States. We are unincorporated territories. Technically, we're a federal creature. And so you are correct to the point that they can come in here and do whatever they want. Because this is a territory or a possession of the United States of America.
This is a colony.
A colony.
That's exactly what it is, a colony. And
what they can do here, they cannot do in a state. And that's why I don't understand the peace officer status bill, really, other than to protect from civil liability. So that's where we are with that. We'll find out tomorrow. We'll report to you what happened in the Senate regarding that.
Currently, they're debating it, and we'll see. And it's leaning. I was just looking at the project coming in here, and it's leaning towards. It's appearing as though they're going to vote it in. So.
Well, peace officer status as it relates to liability for these officers is significant because exposure to civil liability could be quite exorbitant. So I think it would be beneficial to them at the very least.
Correct.
To get a judgment against you for...
Well, it depends on what you're doing. Because remember, the shooting that ATF officer was involved in was not a part of some investigation.
Right.
See, he was in his condo and came out and saw the argument between the man the deceased and the ex-girlfriend. And it was a domestic violence situation. He came out, stopped him, and shot him and killed him. It was not a part of an actual investigation whatsoever.
But allegedly,
they wanted to assign peace officer status to that kind of relationship. And that's why I believe that he was found not liable, because nobody's going to hold somebody liable for a man that was beating up some woman in the middle of the street and he get killed. He probably should get killed.
He intervened in a domestic violence situation and probably saved her life.
So the moral is don't beat up people. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, I know.
It also tells you to don't look the other way as well.
We don't have Samaritan laws.
He could have gone back in his house and shut his door. So,
we'll see what happens. We'll be back in a moment with George Moore. Back on the Good evening and welcome back to VI Voices. As you know, we have been doing our vote campaign, and tonight is no different. We're having those individuals seeking office, particularly seeking a seat in the 30th legislature of the Virgin Islands. Tonight we have with us George Moore, who is no stranger to running for that office, and he's going to be with us tonight as we discuss it. Good evening, George.
Thanks for having me here tonight. Panel, Ferris, Natalie, Emile. Good evening. My name is George Moore. Number 24 on the ballot, senatorial candidate under the ICM banner. This is my fourth time running for the legislature. And in the past, I have campaigned on many different issues. But this campaign this year falls in a different trend. There is something that's actually hurting this community on a wide and broad scale. And I'm talking about the LEAC. The LEAC is destroying the fabric of this community. And to go back a little further, my platform is actually about agriculture, homeland security, and also renewable energy. Right now, I am the vice chairman of the Virgin Islands Public Television System. I sit on the board for over 4 years now. I sit on the board with no compensation for the meetings I do from my heart to the community, and that's my service to the community. I'm also the president of the ICM Party Territorial Committee. I'm standing there for the last 2 years now. I'm also a broadcaster. I've been doing that for the last 23 years. As production manager of Channel 8, and also the one responsible for building TV2. So my platform varies and it stays on a wide scale to get things moving in this territory. So that's basically it,
You are an ICM, aren't you?
Yes, I'm the chairman of the ICM Territorial Committee.
Okay. And you said this is your fourth time running?
Yes.
So you are persistent?
Yes.
Right? Now, I browsed over your brochure here, and you have a platform: agriculture, renewable energy, homeland security, etc. Why do you think during these times where we live in today that we need to have agriculture in the forefront? If you come into the Senate, you know, what proposal that we're trying to push that you think is going to make it better for us?
See, agriculture is, let me put it this way, I am a 4th generation farmer. So I was born and raised on a farm. Agriculture is about life. Everything you eat, drink comes from agriculture. So here in the Virgin Islands, actually the soil in St. Croix, particularly out of all the other 3 islands, is so rich. That's why we had the plantations here and the sugar cane in the past. So in the sense of bringing agriculture back, we must be sustainable by providing food to feed ourselves and also exporting food. The fact remains, we have so many different fruits around here: mangoes, the yellow plum, which is in season right now. You have tamarind, you have avocado. The crops are very huge. I'm also into livestock also. So it's very huge, so we could start doing battling of these products and get shipped out to the different Caribbean islands and to the mainland.
Let me ask you a quick question, because this is the thing I think a lot of people I know want to know. We keep hearing that about agriculture. We have all these fruits and all this soil and all this other stuff, but I've yet to hear somebody come up with a plan on how we're going to actually use agriculture. To be perfectly honest, I am not farming anything. So I don't farm, I am not working outside, I ain't toiling anything. How are we going to get to a point where we're going to have agriculture? What is the plan to ensure that we have exporting? Who is going to be the ones farming? How are we going to get it exported out to the territory so we'll be able to make more money? That's what I think we want to hear.
Well, I don't have an exact plan per se like this, but we have to go through the agriculture department. That's the first step, because right now, if you as a farmer within the territory, you want seedlings, a particular different kind of seedlings, you go to the agriculture department, they don't have it. You have to end up going to Puerto Rico to get it.
Well, so is that something that we should deal with the agriculture
but that's
department?
something I want to push.
Okay.
I'm saying I'm a crop farmer also. I'm also a livestock farmer. You know, I have cows and stuff like that.
I agree with you to the extent that I think farmers are hurting.
Yes.
And that's an industry that is not tapped into here in the Virgin Islands. And based on your experience, you're saying that you believe that if we push agriculture, which has been talked about over the years, if we push agriculture, that possibly we could get it to go on a much grander scale to include exportation, which I think is probably one of the avenues we need to look at if we want to make money doing it. I think we kind of leave the farmers in the background simply because we feel that we're not bringing in enough money through that venue.
And the proper resources need to be there, and it's consistent resources. But that's the problem that we have with our local agriculture department.
But Mr. Moore, at this particular time in our history, do we really need to be talking about homeland security, agriculture? Why aren't we not talking about something that right now that can really make a dent in our revenue stream, show up our education, make student performance? Why don't we do some of those things? Why are you just focusing on those things in your platform, which to me at times, like agriculture, everyone talks about agriculture. And yet to this day, do I see us moving beyond subsistent agriculture to real agriculture that actually put money? Because he's talking that he's not farming anything, but he's probably wearing something made out of cotton and whatnot. How come we're not appealing to somebody with his deep pockets with our agricultural industry?
You see, that's a personal choice. So if you don't want to farm, he could probably hire somebody to do some farming for him in his backyard.
But he eats.
Exactly. Why he weighs also his agriculture product.
Well, let's talk like I'm here.
Yes.
No, but Attorney Henderson eats, and we know he doesn't eat cheap.
Right.
But he export.
Exactly.
He eats food that we import.
Well,
That's local food.
So how do we cut off those imports and make them come right here from the soil?
I think people would prefer to eat locally because it's fresher.
Exactly, it's healthier.
And it's healthier. Okay. So I think it is a choice that people will go forward to.
That's right.
If it's done in abundance and in a way
to get away from that also, because agriculture is me like it is. I say I'm born and raised on a farm like it is, and I've done it through the years. But there's a bigger problem that's facing this territory, and I mentioned earlier in the sense of the LEAC.
Right.
Okay, and the LEAC has actually destroyed the fabric of this territory, because right now we are acting like a third world community, forcing many families into poverty.
How do we get out of that?
Well, one of the ways that I look at it, because right now I want to once I'm elected to the 3rd legislature of Virgin Islands, I want to move legislation to put a cap on the LEAC. Because right now, there's talks right now with the WAPA board and the Public Service Commission to increase
again
the LEAC.
Again?
Yeah.
I'm saying this is madness in this territory. So I want to move that direction, but I need support to move it.
Right. But how do we get around that if we're going to continue to use fossil fuels and crude oil?
Well, my other plan to that, because in the past I've been pushing OTEC. I don't know if you're familiar with OTEC, which is Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion by using the hot and cold temperature of the ocean.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Delegate Christensen actually was in support of that when I was pushing it back then. And also WAPA board will actually move in to select that, new renewable energy here in this territory. But right now, I'm looking at natural gas, liquefied natural gas. And WAPA power plant, both here in St. Croix and St. Thomas, can actually move in that direction to retrofit that plant. It probably within, say between a year, they probably can able to retrofit that plant and get things moving here.
Well, what's the cost though? Because you know they're going to pass it off on us.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number of that right now, but to help alleviate the cost in that, I'm looking in this direction to get revenues from cigarette and liquor to put a tax on those products. It's mandatory in this territory because everything else is taxed around it except cigarette and liquor. I don't smoke, I don't drink, but the bottom line is...
You will have people who say that those are part of the duty-free exemptions that we have, which encourages people who visit the territory to buy and leave without having to pay a tax. So if there was a tax here, then the sales for that and what would have our tourists come into to get wouldn't be as high. In addition, going back with this duty-free rum, where we get our excise tax from, then we'll reduce our cover-over money that comes back to us. So we know it's already been reduced by about 46% because we gave it to the Diageo.
Right.
So now with your tax, wouldn't that then reduce the amount even further?
It will reduce it.
So why would that be helpful?
Well, in a sense, it brings in revenue one way, but you got to decrease one way. So you have to look other ways again, funds to capitalize on that. Now going back to agriculture again now, because we have the industrial park over there that is just sitting there empty that can use in the agriculture process as a small business can get inside here. Because remember, in any community, small business is what keep a community floating.
Definitely.
I agree.
And right now, many of the small businesses are closing.
So do you have a plan for small businesses?
Well, not exactly right now, because we have to get away from this LEAC situation. That's the mind-boggling situation with this LEAC.
But now see, here's the thing that I want the audience to be aware of. We're not going to get away from the LEAC situation.
It's law like it is. It's written in the law.
But understand it this way. The issue isn't necessarily the LEAC. The issue is what it's costing us to power our plants.
Right.
Because if I have a restaurant and I pay $1 for a chicken leg and I have to sell it back to you and I say I'm going to sell it to you for $3 because I have to use my oil and my light or whatever, there's nothing illegal about that. And we know that there was a senator before who came back and run into office, and we have some issues with her or being in the Senate. Right. You know, she ran this LEAC, I'm going to take away your LEAC. But that never could have happened because there's nothing illegal about the LEAC. Right. They're allowed to take back what their operating costs are. The issue is, how are we going to have proper renewable energy to avoid having to have such a tax or a LEAC in there? So that's my question to you. How are you going to get that done?
Well, we have to get rid of the oil process because that number 6 oil is very expensive. And actually,
it's going to get more expensive now that the Libyans are around the place fighting.
That's true. And matter of fact, you know, I did some study at WAPA, matter of fact, years ago, and I've stated many different instances about it. You know, we get acid rain right here in this territory because of WAPA plant. Okay. The pollution is terrible. Sure. Okay, so the EPA already looked into WAPA situation, but actually they got some kind of agreement to actually lower the emission in the sense of it, so they don't really put much pressure on WAPA like it is. But the residents in that community, seriously, are getting sick. Asthma is rampant. I remember one day I was in a political forum to Juanita Garden, and he had a little young man came up to me, and he tapped me on my shoulder, so I looked around and I didn't see anybody, so I had to look down. And the young man said to me, Mr. Moore, you know, I thank you for coming to our school and discussing the problem that's taking place from WAPA. Because my whole house, everybody has asthma. And I'm glad you're going to do something about it. And I still sit in my chest for today. Because a young fella, I think he was in like 4th grade, I think he was in. And this is a serious thing like it is. So we have to get rid of that number 6 oil, and I say like it is liquid. Gas is a process to go and to retrofit the WAPA plant. And matter of fact, Trinidad is right around the corner. We can get the natural gas from Trinidad, which can be shipped up here in an easy fashion. It wouldn't be that much expensive to get it here, but the plant has to be retrofit in that manner so we could get out of this use of oil.
I like that retrofit idea, provided that it's at a low cost, that it doesn't,
Right.
you know, defeat the purpose. But I think that's a good.
And you know, as I mentioned before too, I was campaigning before in 2008 and 2010 in the sense of using OTEC. And OTEC is so pure, it's natural, no pollution. And they have many resourceful benefits by using OTEC. You can use the ocean water that's coming down when it goes through the still process. You can use that for agriculture. You can use it for residential. You can use it for air conditioning units. You can have mariculture out of it. The resources is endless. And matter of fact, I think those folks are looking to come back here to actually build a plant here in St. Croix. The fact remains they want to build it out in the north side because you got to go about 3 miles out to get the right temperature. And that's a process I've been pushing for a long time, and I'm in favor of that to get it here. But right now, we need quick fix.
Mr. Moore, but let's be realistic here. Everything, we're decades behind the rest of the world.
Right.
We still are not recycling our trash. We're not doing any of those things that we are supposed to do to be progressive. Do you really think those ideas that you're laughing at us are going to really pass in the Virgin Islands? Are they going to be, in a year, do we actually going to see OTEC? In 5 years, are we going to see OTEC realistically?
OTEC plant can be built in 2.5 years. But that's a long time coming. But the process that we need to go through is liquefied gas. That's a quick turnaround like it is. Because water plants in both islands actually is structured in that manner they can go into liquid gas.
The landfill is still running. We still haven't shut that down yet. Something as simple as paper, we can't recycle.
Well, that is leadership. We have to look at leadership when it comes to all these different problems.
So
because the landfill sits there, you are supposed to move from there the last 4 years.
So you're telling me right now, what you're going to bring to the legislature is sound leadership.
Yes.
That can change behavior and move the Virgin Islands forward.
Definitely. I want to tell you something here. In the past, as a production manager for Channel 8, I have the courtesy of working with farmers, senators, and governors. I have produced many campaigns, run campaigns territory-wide. And one particular person that stands in my mind, the late and great Senator Ruby Margaret Rouse. She said to me, Moore, if you're ever running for political office, you alone cannot make it pass. But you alone can put some serious action in the minds of the community.
Well, I can tell you right now, Ruby Rose ain't nowhere around here. We don't have any Ruby Roses like we used to have.
Exactly.
Sitting in the Senate.
Exactly.
I think we got some who like Ruby Rose, but they are not. But we're out of time, so let's give some time for you to let the audience know where they can find you, where they can look you up, and get some more information on you.
Fellow voters, I'm George Moore, number 24 on the ballot. This November 6th is very crucial. I'm asking you, when you go there to the polls, cast a vote for me. This is my 4th time running. I'm a very serious candidate. I'm very versed on the issues. I know what's going on within my community. I give service to my community above self. You can call me at 277-8670, or you can go to my website, which is georgemore2012.com. That's georgemore2012.com. And, you know, I'm looking forward to see you all there in the polls. Make this election very productive. We need paradigm and effective change in this territory. Again, I'd like to say thank you all for having me here tonight. You know, it was a pleasure.
I want to wish you the best of luck. I think you have some very, very good qualities as it relates to getting an opportunity. And if people just give you the chance, I think you will be able to make a difference. So best of luck.
Thank you much. We'll be back with Judy Fritz Buckley.
Thank you very much, John. Okay.
Good evening and welcome back. And now we have with us Judy Fritz Buckley, who is running for a seat in the 30th legislature. Good evening, Ms. Buckley. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very well. How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Good.
Thank you for coming on VI Voices. And you know, you've been here, you've seen some of our discussions before. I want to get right to it. Exactly what is it that you have to offer the people of the Virgin Islands if you were to be elected into the Senate?
Well, that's a loaded question that I will attempt to answer. You know, I moved here in 1982, so I grew up down here, and I graduated from high school here, and I actually had my first son here, and the reason I came here is because my dad is a preacher, and he wanted to, God told him to move here and start a church, so he packed up his 4 girls and wife and moved down here. And so I came down and was really raised with a a spirit of service, you know, being taught that it was better to serve others than to serve yourself. And I grew up and I moved away, like a lot of us, and I went to school in the States, and I came back, and I've been back since 1999. And upon my return, I wanted to give back to the community in whatever way that I could. And when my children were smaller, I moved back when my kids were 7 and 12. I was very involved in their school. And then as they got older and I was able to spread my wings a little bit, I started getting more involved in community-based things. And my involvement really started back in about 2003, 2004, when there was a lot of crime on the island. There was a huge rash of crime that was breaking out all over the island, and people started getting really, really scared. And started forming neighborhood watches. And long story short, through the years, that work in the community ended up leading to starting Crime Stoppers.
Now, did you start Crime Stoppers? Who started Crime Stoppers?
Along with another gentleman named Alan Brown, who actually no longer lives here, but still works very diligently every day to help keep Crime Stoppers running.
Crime Stoppers is a national organization or a local organization?
It's actually international.
Oh,
we here in the
okay.
Virgin Islands are one of 1,200 chapters all over the world, and so it was the two of us, and we recruited a team across the territory to help, and we started Crime Stoppers, and that work that we've been doing for the last 4.5 years. You know, we launched in beginning of 2009. But it took us a year to form it because it is a nonprofit. So it took quite a while to gather get everything together throughout the territory. That work really is what prompted me to run for Senate 2 years ago. You know, I ran in 2010. Obviously, I didn't win a seat in the 29th legislature. I came really, really close. I actually came in number 9 on the ballot. And the reasons I ran then are the same reasons and more that I'm running now. And that is working with Crime Stoppers every day and working with law enforcement and also subsequently seeing how the judicial system works and in many cases how it doesn't work. It really opened my eyes as to why we have a revolving door. You know, the police have a catchphrase that they use. They call it catch and release. You know, they catch the criminals and they get released right back out on the street often.
But okay, stop.
Okay.
From whom? You see, because every time I hear that statement that the cops catches them and they're released,
right,
and the statement you just made in regards to the judicial system or not properly acting in certain
right.
areas, I get very concerned about that because we're not really looking, and I think it's somewhat, for the most important, unfair to the courts because we're not really looking at what the police are doing.
Right.
People get released because police do things they're not supposed to do.
Right.
And so, as a lawyer,
right.
as a defense lawyer, if the police do what they're supposed to do by the book, there's absolutely nothing, and I'm going to be very honest, there'll be nothing as a lawyer that I can do
right.
that would get you
right.
off or
right.
get you, out of the system. But it always concerns, I need for you to explain that to me, it always concerns me when we say that the police catches them and somehow the judicial system lets them go.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
Well, obviously what I said was painting with a very broad brush. Here's what I've learned through my work. What you said is absolutely true. There are situations at every level in our system, from the minute they're arrested to how their evidence is procured, how it's stored or not properly. In many cases over the years, that has been a huge problem. It is getting better. To things happening in the AG's office, to things happening in the actual courtroom. There have been problems at every layer at some point that has caused the breakdown. I don't believe there's any one entity that is responsible for our shortcomings here. I think they have happened at every level at different times in the system. So it's not to point fingers to any one system because there's problems throughout the whole thing.
I totally agree.
There's problems in the Bureau of Corrections. You know what I mean? So it's.
But
I agree.
Ms. Fritz, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your candidacy leaves me with a mixed bag, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because last election, this was your first election,
right.
and to me, a virtual unknown just pops on the scene, and you garnish so much support. Now, 2 years hence from that experience,
right.
you're now back, and crime prevention looks like a priority on your platform. Then you mentioned economy, then education, and energy, and environment. So those are your priorities in terms of your platform. Now I'm concerned in terms of how can I feel like you are going to be championing my issues, because to me I think crime is a result of lack of opportunity.
Agreed.
Economy.
Agreed.
and our education system crumbling.
Right.
But then a portionate platform focus on dropout. That's at the end. What about the beginning?
Right.
How do you let those children access education and persist from K all the way to 12?
Right. You know, it's interesting you say that, and the conversation started with, you know, what would I bring to the legislature? So the conversation naturally gravitated toward my work in the community, which has been toward crime prevention. And when you know, as a candidate, you know, we are tasked with putting together a platform. And in this moment right now in our history, how do you possibly weigh what is more important? Is it our energy? Is it our education? Is it our economy? Is it our lack of jobs? Is it crime? I mean, so for me, they all need equal attention. All of them do. So your question about how would I address your concerns, the reality is a whole lot of the issues that we're dealing with here, in my opinion, start in the home. How do you legislate better parenting, right? How do you legislate more involvement? How do you legislate parents putting more emphasis on education, encouraging their kids to stay in school? You don't. So some of the things that you can do as a legislator or a legislator is you look at, okay, like there's not one senator who can fix the education system, and they're lying if they tell you they can. The reality is the entire education system needs an overhaul. How do you do that? You know, there's ways that you can start, you know. A job as a senator, one of them is to have budget oversight, as you well know. One of the things I would enjoy doing is I don't know if I would enjoy it, but I would be anxious to do, is look at the education budget. It is entirely too top-heavy. And the fact that we're laying off teachers and we're having our children suffer at the ground level, when we still have so many administrators that are getting quite nice paychecks, that's a problem for me, okay? But that's another issue. We have very poor truancy laws. We don't have very many systems in place to keep our kids from dropping out of school. So a lot of our kids just fall through the cracks, and there's nothing to catch them. There are some individual schools who are doing some things. I understand that Emile A at Arthur Richards has a program that he's, you know, helping students who have failed grades repeatedly.
Well, let me cut you off for a minute. Here's what I think the audience wants to hear. And I know I've said this before, and I'm going to say it every week that we have these episodes. I want to hear the plan. I mean, all of this sounds flowery and nice and makes me warm and fuzzy, that we want to deal with crime prevention and education and energy and all this other stuff. But I don't hear when people say to me, this is how I'm going to do education. I am going to do this, and this. Saying to me that I will support legislation that does this, that doesn't swing for me. What is your plan? I want to go through because you have 4 things here. You have crime prevention and enforcement, education, economy, and energy and environment. And I can see where you've listed that for crime, and I may have been more comfortable with that because that's what you do mostly. What would be your plan for our education system? The actual plan.
I don't have a plan to actually tackle as a legislator, like I said before, one of the biggest issues in our education system is that we spend over $17,000 per student, and very little of that actually reaches our students, okay? That's a problem. What do you do as a legislator, okay? You can serve on an education committee.
But that's what the people are looking for. We all know what the problems are, I think. Primarily people know. And so when we're voting for someone, we're voting for someone to go in to solve it, which means we don't know it, but we're hoping you do. So what exactly would be your plan in regards to the education department?
You know, one of the things that, and what I'm going to say is going to hold true for my entire role as a senator, okay? One of the things we don't do very well right now is collaborate. We don't cooperate. Obviously one senator can't pass anything by themselves. So I could sit here all day long and tell you step A through Z of all the things that I want to do. The reality is we have to have some like-minded folks who are willing to form a unified agenda. Somebody put on Facebook the other day, what will you do your first 90 days in the Senate? And I said, well, I've never been a senator before, but I can imagine it'll be spent hiring a staff, forming, you know, the caucuses and whatever happens in the legislature, but also hoping that you can find enough people who are willing to put the good of the territory first, and specifically St. Croix in our case. St. Thomas unifies very well. We don't do that very well on St. Croix. And without a group who will, you know, be willing to share an agenda to actually move it forward through the committees, you know, it's all kind of lost.
Because I think I worked with you on junior achievement in the public schools.
Right.
and I think you targeted the junior high school level, it was like 6th, 7th, 8th grade?
8th, yeah, 7th,
somewhere like that, 7th and 8th grade. So it seems to me that you have an interest there, and it turns out that that's where we have our highest dropout rate.
Yes, and that's why we started there, right.
Right, so can we expect you to have a focus, or you put here help at-risk students, so those we considered as at-risk persons in that category who tend to drop out of school
right.
without going on to
right.
getting a diploma. Can we expect you, if you are successful this time, to have a focus in saving those students so we could have less of those young men dropping out of school and ending up, as you know, where you being on Crime Stoppers
right.
in the court system
and
the revolving door
yep.
that you referred to. What can we expect then specifically to that group?
The two things I would like to do is to review our truancy laws, okay, and see where it needs to tighten up. Model laws that are working well in the United States. Okay, it's an issue here. And I would also like to see some programs implemented for the students who are at risk.
Okay.
We do have the Alternative Education School. I've had the opportunity through Junior Achievement to go in there and conduct some classes, teaching kids about you know how to you know get ready for the workforce.
One of the things that concerns me about that alternative school is the fact that really and truly the children that are there don't belong there.
Yeah.
And that's what concerns me. And that's what I'm trying to get from you, the issue with education, because a lot of the students who are there possess some form of a learning disability
right.
that precludes them from really learning the way that
yep.
they should.
Which is
and because some parents don't know their rights necessarily to say, look, I want my child tested. And then for
right.
them, the
right.
EDC to comply, right, now that's the Education Diagnostic Center, to comply with the proper testing and give them the assistance they need, these behavioral problems develop.
Right.
We have a lot of talkers because they're bored in the
right.
classroom because they may be
right.
a little too advanced.
Right.
And so I'm not necessarily a major fan of sending children you don't want
right.
to the alternative school just
that has
because you
huge
want them
stigma
there.
attached to it.
Correct.
Huge.
So do you support having, and how would you do it, a change of the structure within the Department of Education, where the Department of Education handles state functions of handling the monies, the federal funds, and let the Board of Education handle the administration of education in our territory?
Yeah, and I think we also need to sort of decentralize the Department of Education and put more autonomy in the hands of the principals. You know, it's just there's way too much bureaucracy. There are way too many limitations at the schools to get funding into them. And we absolutely need to do more to help the kids who are, and I don't even want to necessarily say at risk, but you know, I do a lot of work with some teenagers and stuff, and one of the things they say over and over is we have a lot of stress in our lives, we are surrounded by crime, our parents have 8% cut, we have layoffs, Hovenza has closed, we have a lot of stress, and we have nobody at our schools to talk to. They don't have mentors. There's a group of teenagers out there right now who want to form their own mentorship program so that they don't become one of those who, you know, gets on the wrong path and might need, you know, end up at the alternative ed school. So our schools need more, I don't like to just use the word resources because that kind of that's sort of a blanket phrase, but we need, specifically, our children need more, whether you want to call them guidance counselors or psychologists or help before they get to the point where they just drop out and we
brings
lose
you right back to the dollars, though. Lack of dollars is
yeah,
not going to happen.
agreed.
I see all time ending, but how do you speak to those parents of those children that say, are you going to be my friend? Are you going to be one of those politicians who are going to come after this 8% and side with the same administration, cut our salaries even further, restrict our bargaining power as union members? And can they have faith in you that you're going to be a friend to the working men and women of this community?
You know, Clint, I'm actually glad you said that. One of the things that when you know the 8% cut was implemented and all the people started being laid off, and I still saw so much waste and what we now know is fraud in the government. One of the things that I've always said that if I were elected to the Senate is I would not implement any cuts, any firings, any layoffs until I knew that we had tightened our belts absolutely as much as we could. I still see too many perks out there. I still see too much waste with our government vehicles. We could go on and on. I haven't crunched those numbers to find out exactly what the savings would be, but I refuse to believe that we have cut all we need to cut before we start cutting the guys on the ground every day. I feel very, very strongly about that. And I'll wrap up by saying I really appreciate you guys allowing me to be here. You can find me on my website at www.judybuckley.com. It's Judi. You can call me at 513-3832. My website, or my email address is always also on the website. There's a whole lot more I wanted to talk about that we didn't get into tonight. But one of the things I also want to tackle is our energy issue. As everyone knows, it is crippling the territory, and if we don't solve it, I don't think anything else we do matters. I am a very big proponent of bringing liquefied natural gas to the territory. I happen to be aware of a plan that's in place. There's a private company who is working really hard to bring it here, and it's going to be at no cost to the government, so there's going to be significant savings down the road. I do think it's going to get a little bit harder before it gets easier for us, but we are a resilient country. We are a very resilient island for sure, and I would like to ask for your support on November 6th. Again, my name is Judy Buckley. I am number 7 on your ballot.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Buckley.
Thank you.
Let's have a moment.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome back. We had a really good show tonight. We had with us George Moore and Judy Buckley, who are running for a seat in the 30th legislature of the Virgin Islands. That's some insightful things to say. I mean,
very much so. I think you have two candidates that give us something to look at. But me, I can't help but say I'm going to side with the working men and women of this territory. I am going to vote for people who are going to look out for my interests. And I'm going to vote against people who voted for that VSA bill. So that's how I stand right now. I'm voting for the working men and women of this community. So
but the key is going to be how are our voters to be able to decipher through who is genuinely going to work for the working man and woman, and those who are saying it, but when they get there, they do something different.
Well, I think with regard to that, you look at their community-based record. For example, we had George Moore earlier tonight who talked about his record over 20-something years in the community and much of it without pay. The same thing with Judy Fricks, who's grown up in the community and has given back in many ways in non-profit organizations, serving on boards and doing things without compensation. And that says a lot about the character and integrity of people of that nature, that they will continue to be consistent in what they've been doing all their life.
That's true too, but Judy Fricks also mentioned one person getting in the legislature and can't do nothing by themselves, so they need to align themselves with certain individuals. So that goes back again to the structure of the legislature. And what are we going to do about that? I mean, how can one person change anything or make a difference?
Exactly. One of the first things that happens when they get in there is they go into these secret sessions
right.
and start up, and then it determines how much power you have and how much you can get done at the end of the day. And then,
but let's be fair. In the national level, that's exactly what happens too. The only difference is that in the national level, there is a clear line of demarcation between who's a Democrat and who's a Republican,
right.
and we're independents are. We don't have that here. Right. And that's the problem.
And that's the troubling part. If you cannot identify by common philosophy, what are you identifying with? So that's the troubling part when you talk about ICM.
You're identifying with the money.
Yeah, but so you said it that right. So so I have to be concerned.
But that brings us right back to square one and the constituents. The average person, you think they know anything about structural legislature. So how are they going to vote? How are they going to choose people who are in their best interest?
But that's where we now have to start to go back about. You talk about one man not being able to make a difference.
Yeah,
start with your vote and understanding who you're voting for.
Right.
Look at experiences that they have had. Look at the total sum of their experiences, background, what organization they belong to, and actually listen. Come out, read. I say, Miss Fritz Buckley gave us her platform and her brochure. Read that. Go to her website. Talk to people who may know her. Talk to people who know George Moore, because people who sit on the board with George Moore knows if he shows up to board meetings or not.
My point is, how many of us are going to take the time to do that? Unfortunately, that's not the case.
But that's why you
support people who talk loud, who is a friend of my cousin, girlfriend, brother, sister.
But we also support.
That's how we do support people. People who promise us things. It's a selfish type kind of thing.
Because there's a popularity vote, but I think we support people that we see out there on a regular basis because they're doing things in the community and their faces are known, and you attach the face to what they're about. And those people have an edge over persons who you never saw before, and all of a sudden you see a brochure and it's like, who's this?
Right.
But that's why here at RTD and at VI Voices we've had the campaign of the Rock Your Voice campaign, because our goal is to do exactly what you just said. Get people to become much more involved, to really make sound and informed decisions of who they're going to vote for. And that's why we're pushing our Rocket Voice campaign to get that done. And hopefully people will be able to come out and see that. But I also agree with Boyd, is that our electorate votes completely differently.
Yeah.
But
a lot of, I should say the entire electorate, but a lot of the people in the electorate, they vote based on emotion at the time.
Right.
Because let's remember, in 2010, all the governor had to do was give you retroactive money that was really your own money, and you turned around and voted him right back into office, despite the fact that we didn't have roads, we didn't have proper, our taxes were not collected. All these things which should have been done were not done. And what happened less than a year later? 8% of your tax, 8% of your pay was taken away, and you were laid off. Why? For the same $40 million he gave to you, that was your own money, that he gave to you to use. And now GRS is on the brink of collapse because of that.
But we have to mobilize the voting population and educate them, because I think it's a lack of education that puts us back over and over, election after election, doing the same thing, and it's a revolving door, right? We have to change that mindset. And I think this show is one of the shows that's helping us to go in the right direction. But we have to change the mindset of the people who go out there and vote.
And see, and that's it, and you're right about that.
How do we do that though?
We spoke about that last week.
By doing exactly what we're doing.
You say you can't legislate that.
No,
you can't legislate. There's actually a law in place that would teach children from kindergarten to 12 about who they are and what they went through as a people. We do not address that at all.
But we don't have civics in school. I don't think
I talking even before.
But you see, and that's the problem. I think we have a problem here, that I think we keep saying that we talk about there's a law to teach children how to identify with themselves and be proud Virgin Islanders. But you see, and I think we spend too much time harping on that. We need to teach our children to be human beings first, and champion what they need, what's right. We do not champion what's right, and at times we allow our national pride, our territorial pride to move before what is right. I want to tell you what is right. Standing up and being counted. Don't be hiding behind a tree, don't be hiding behind a phone. Let people know what's on your mind. And do you know what's on my mind? If you vote for the VSA bill, Clint Ferris said he's not voting for you.
I agree with you, Clint. I agree with you. But the issue is, if you do not know who you are, how are you going to love who you are? Everything starts from the inside out. Everything starts with self.
And
if you don't teach me about who I am, that's how come the children are falling out of school today. Because when they open a book, if I take a picture, right now in here, if somebody take a picture, they got a photographer here, if he take a picture and he show each and every one of the picture, who we going to look for in the picture? You know who you're going to look for? You're going to look for yourself. So if the children ain't identifying with themselves or with anything about themselves in the education system, then they're going to find out that I'm alarming rate, and that's exactly what's happening.
I don't know who B-Rose is.
And not only who B-Rose, we have so many prominent Virgin Islands who came here and did so much, and nobody don't know anything about them. I could name 3, 4, 5 of them right now.
For all of the people who are watching this show, whether you live in the States or you live here, I want to correct some American history, because we are a territory and we are considered American.
Unincorporated.
However it may be, Nancy Pelosi is not the first woman to lead a legislative body. That's Ruby Rose in the 14th legislature here in the Virgin Islands. Nancy Pelosi come way after. And so if you are including us in your American history, then you have to include Ruby Rose. She was the first woman to lead an entire legislative body pretty much by herself, because the other people were all aligned with other people. And she was at that time one of the most powerful senators in the legislature.
There are many issues
but
like
children
that.
don't know about her. They don't know about Lucinda Millen.
That's my
they don't know
point.
about any of these people.
That's my point. How can you stand up and how can you do right if you don't know who you are?
Look why
if you have media telling you who you are and identify you, the man that define you could destroy you. That's my point. Define yourself and stand up as a man once you know who you are.
I totally agree with that.
That's empowering every race of people to teach themselves about themselves, and that's my position.
Look at the straw polls. They do it in the schools, elementary schools, and a lot of times the results mirrors. Am I not right?
Because they vote what their parents feel.
The children at times pick better choices than their parents.
I agree.
And think about, no lie, the children are more astute. See, I think children are already identifying early on with being black, being Virgin Islanders. is that when their parents at a certain age start to condition them to be something other than what
well,
they...
we could turn it around.
Thank
we can
you.
have the children influence their parents because of
That's
them being
supposed to happen.
empowered.
No, and that's a problem.
I think
influencing their
that
parents to do something completely different in that manner.
But see, I'm about to say that's the problem. Parents don't know how to parents don't know how to set the agenda for their children and raise them up to be proper Virgin Islanders, strong black men and women, strong men and women
I'm with you on
in
that
this
way.
community, and that's where
We
we
have
go
children
wrong.
making children, and a
That's-
lot of
I was
times
just about-
teachers don't know.
just like the
But
one
if
on-
your children are empowered,
But
they
the
can do
children
the right
didn't just
thing.
start making children. This
No,
has been
we
going on
didn't
for a
do that.
while.
But you see,
And so we are now at a point where your grandmother is 26.
But you see,
and that's a problem.
But you see, and that we think that's appropriate behavior. That's not
Exactly.
appropriate behavior in
It's
my
not.
house.
It's not. I agree with you.
The
But
children
that's
are
what's
suffering.
happening now. And the issue is, how do we get ourselves away from that?
It stops now with us. Want to tell you why? I do not go to a baby shower for a 16-year-old. I am rewarding that
I
bad
agree.
behavior.
I absolutely agree.
And if my child get pregnant, don't throw her baby shower, because I'm gonna come and throw everybody out.
I agree with you. I'm not rewarding that kind of
Well,
behavior.
I don't have
Thank
any
you.
daughters, and I definitely won't be rewarding that kind of behavior.
But you have a
either.
son.
I have sons.
He could be 16 and have a child.
I have sons, but see, it's a little different.
No, not
He
different.
wasn't
It's not in
there.
my face every
Wasn't he
day.
there?
That belly's not in my face every day. So it's a little different.
And you notice
now
who's
for a
saying
boy.
that? That's a woman sitting there upon us.
But it's the truth.
Yeah. So when the
Well,
when
how-
the
I
kid
wouldn't
will
have it
come
for
in,
my
we're
16-year-old
gonna turn
daughter.
around.
I think
don't
we should
have
allow
one.
her to express herself and tell us how that's a different.
how is that
How
different?
is that different?
Well, my perspective on that, and not that I'm saying that is right, because I'm definitely not promoting that, but what I'm saying is, as a parent of a son, I don't have to necessarily be involved firsthand with the trials and tribulations of a pregnancy that girl's mother has to experience with her family. It doesn't affect my family and my son in a direct in the face
right.
way that it would. You know, so it's a different perspective. Not to say that it's right, and not to say that you won't address it with your son.
Hold
which I
that
will,
thought,
but
because we are running out of time,
Different.
and I need for you to finish that
I
on a
sure
longer
will.
show, because I don't understand it.
I sure
And
will.
so
Mother of son, I sure
tomorrow
can.
we're going to have on the show Arthur Joseph, Sharianne Wilshire, and Carmen Cintron. And we're also going to be doing an extra hour tomorrow of all hot topics. And the first one we're talking about is Natalie and her
Indirect pregnancy.
right. So remember that here our votes. Get out there and vote. Rock your voice, and be sure to understand. Always remember that your voice can make a difference. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Who the who?
All right.